double the fun, Sherri and Chelsi will be showing us Release 5 of the Bloom-Topia Quilt Along. Let's get started.
Hi, and welcome to Release 5 Day. Today we're going to be making the Martha Washington block. So first, we are going to be starting by making our flying geese units. You will need one fabric square and one background rectangle. You're going to draw a line on the wrong side, corner to corner of the fabric square, and you'll place that right sides together with a background rectangle. You'll sew on the drawn line, and then you'll trim 1/4 of an inch away. That will give you the first portion of your flying geese unit. So next, you'll repeat that first step on the right side, and when you're done, you will have a final flying geese unit. And then you will need to make 4 completed flying geese units. Okay, so this is going to be the easiest step of the entire block. First, you're going to cut these 2 large squares diagonally, corner to corner, twice, which will give you 4 fabric triangles, 4 background triangles. Next, you'll cut your smaller background square just once, corner to corner, to give you 2 background triangles. Okay, so next we're going to make our partial pinwheel unit. You will start by using 1 large background triangle, then you'll have 1 smaller background triangle and 1 smaller fabric triangle. Next, you'll sew these 2 triangles together to make this partial unit, and then you'll sew these 2 together to make 1 partial pinwheel unit. You will need to make 4 of these partial pinwheel units. So next, to finish the entire pinwheel unit, you will need to take 4 partial pinwheel units, you'll sew them together in 2 rows, and then you'll sew those sections together to make 1 final pinwheel unit. Okay, so now we are going to assemble our final Martha Washington star block. You will need 4 background squares, 4 flying geese units, and 1 pinwheel unit. You will start by sewing 2 background squares to 1 flying geese unit, and you'll do that on both the top and the bottom rows. Next, you'll sew 2 flying geese units to 1 pinwheel unit. After you have those rows together, you'll sew those 3 sections together to make 1 final Martha Washington star block. And now we're going to have Sherri McConnell show us how to make the Magnolia Bud Blocks as a part of Release 5.
Okay, so we're ready to make the Magnolia Bud Blocks, and you will have a lot of fun making these blocks. We're going to start out with background rectangles and red print rectangles, and you're going to draw a diagonal line from corner to corner on 3 of your background rectangles to begin with. Now you'll want to pay attention to your pattern to get the correct direction, because we will be making some mirror units later, and we'll be drawing the lines the opposite way. But the diagrams are wonderful, so if you get lost, just look at the pattern. After you draw that line, we're going to place a background rectangle with a red print rectangle, right sides together, and we're going to put those lines so that the corners line up, as you can see right here. Then what you're going to do is you're going to sew 1/4 of an inch away from either side of the line. And to do this, I actually use the diagonal seam tape by Allison Harris of Cluck Cluck Sew, so that I could just line it up and sew those lines without having to draw anything else, and to make sure that they were accurate. After that, we're going to cut on your drawn diagonal line, and that's going to give us 2 different half rectangle units that look like this. Then we're going to use either the template included in your pattern, or if you purchase the kit, you will have the half rectangle trimmer template that you can use. Makes it super easy. You're going to line up the diagonal line on the template with your seam line, and what you want to do is get the template as close to the bottom edge of the unit as possible. And then we are actually going to trim this. So each of these units will make 2 identical half rectangle triangle units. The next step is that we are going to start those mirror units that I talked about. And you can see that it really is a mirror unit. And you're just going to do the same thing and cut on this drawn line and use your template or your half rectangle trimmer to trim. So when you make your mirror unit, you will just do the same thing. You can use the template from your pattern or the half rectangle trimmer to trim this block into your 2 half rectangle triangle units. Okay, so you can see now what the completed half rectangle triangle units look like with their mirror images set right next to them. You will need to make 3 of each type with your red fabric and background fabric, and then 2 of each mirror image with your yellow fabric and background fabric, and 5 of each with your green fabric and background fabric. Okay, now we're ready to make the simple little flower bud unit for this block. And you're just going to take a background square and a red square and a background rectangle. You're going to sew the background and red square together, press towards the red square, and then you're going to sew the rectangle unit to that unit. You will need to make 3 of these units using the red center square and 2 of the units using a yellow center square. Now we're going to assemble the block. You're going to take a center square, 2 mirror image half rectangle units that are in the same fabric as your center square, 2 mirror image half rectangle units from the green fabric, and then you're going to use 3 squares for each of the 3 corners, and the 4th corner will be made up of the little bud unit that we just made. And we're going to sew these sections together in rows, and that will make our completed Magnolia Bud block. You will need to make 3 of these blocks using your red fabric and 2 of these blocks using your yellow fabric. Okay, now it's time to assemble our large Magnolia Bud unit, and you're going to take the remaining 2 red Magnolia Bud blocks and the 2 yellow Magnolia Bud blocks, and we're going to lay them out as shown in the diagram and sew them together. We are also going to add borders to this unit. So after you've sewn them together, you're going to add the 2 left and right background rectangles, press out, and then add the top and the bottom background rectangles and press out, and this will give you your large Magnolia Bud unit. This has been a really fun block to make, and we'll be back in 2 weeks with release 6.